Okay, we're going live.
Thanks, Kathy.
Great.
Okay.
So, Audrey, should we go right into the first item?
I think that would be great. Yeah, if you're able to call the meeting to order, and then we can take it right into the approval of the minutes, if that works for you.
All right, sure. So call the meeting to order. It's Wednesday, or no, it's Friday. I'm looking at the prior minutes. Friday, June 24th. We don't need to do a roll call, do we?
I believe so.
Okay. All right, bear with me here. So we will move forward with the roll call for the minutes from the prior January 19th A&F subcommittee meeting. Any questions or amendments to the minutes? All right. Hearing none. Kathy, can you help with the roll call?
I can. Lauren, can you vote? Were you at that meeting?
I was not.
Okay.
I believe the secretary was, so I will abstain.
Okay. Dimitri,
Yes.
Cassandra,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, so I believe the minutes are approved. All right, so the next item, we'll kick it over to Carrie. Are you going to walk us through the
Yes.
updates? Okay.
Yes.
Great,
I'm going to start and then I'll pass it to Edith and Newbert. But welcome everyone. Good afternoon, Lauren, Cassandra, and Dimitri. It's a pleasure, and other attendees. As you know, the purpose of this meeting and this presentation is to review our fiscal year end 22 budget projections and review with you the recommendation for fiscal year 23. So I will start out. There are two key assumptions that form kind of the backbone of our budget recommendation. The first is, of course, the public health emergency, or PHE for short. Since the subcommittee last met in January, the PHE has been extended 6 months from about April 15th to October 15th. And because of the protections that are afforded under the PHE, QHP eligible members currently remain in Mass Health. So the budget projections that we will review today and that you will, I believe, vote on assume a PHE end date of October 15th. And again, as a reminder and at a very high level, each time the PHE gets extended, our budgets are impacted. The Health Connectors administrative budget is unfavorably impacted, primarily to reduced membership and then hence reduced revenue. Whereas the programmatic budget would be favorably impacted because of reduced spending on connector care subsidies. So if the PHE is extended another 90 days, potentially to around January 15th of 2023, this would have obviously implications on our budget. And just for reference, we provide in the appendix of this presentation a high-level view of what that alternative scenario would look like if the PHE were to end in January. So that's just for your reference. And then secondly, the second assumption about the budget is that we do not assume continuation of the more generous federal subsidies that are provided under the American Rescue Plan, or ARP. This resulted in both pretty significant cost savings to both the Commonwealth in the form of state subsidies, as well as lower premiums for Massachusetts residents. These enhanced federal subsidies are set to expire December 31st, and this budget assumes that. I'll stop there for a second. If there's no further questions, I will pass it to Edith and she can begin her review of FY22 with you. And hearing none, I'll pass it to Edith.
Good afternoon, everyone. So net of FFP, the programmatic cost for FY22 is estimated at $79.3 million, which is $0.6 million favorable to the budget that was presented at the A&F subcommittee meeting last January. So lower membership is the main contributor to the variance. The January budget assumed a PHE end date of April 15th, which would have resulted in membership movement from Mass Health to CCA starting in May and June. And now we're assuming that PHE will end in October and membership movement from Mass Health will start in the last quarter of calendar year 2022. Any questions? If not, I'll pass it over to Nupur to talk about FY22 membership.
Thank you, Edith. Good afternoon, everyone. Relative to the enrollment estimates we provided in January, current estimates for FY22 are largely similar, reflecting a 0.2% decrease. These projections reflect the extension of the public health emergency from April 15th to October 15th, which will also impact the enrollment projections we'll share for FY23. Are there any questions?
Okay, no questions about 22. I'll pass it to Nupur. We still have the slide to do. Sorry, one slide ahead.
Thanks, Carrie. So looking at our administrative budget, and relative to the estimates we provided in January, the current FY22 budget is favorable by $3.9 million. Key drivers of this include lower than budgeted expenses for customer experience, for marketing, and consulting. Additional drivers also include the timing of key projects that were delayed to FY23 and delays in hiring open positions. Are there any questions on FY22 administrative budget? Okay. If no questions, I'll pass it back to Edith to discuss FY23 programmatic.
Thank you, Nupur. So the programmatic budget presented on the next slide assumes that PHE will end in October 22, as Carrie mentioned earlier, and reflects more optimistic membership projections compared to the January FY23 projections. That's as a result of comprehensive outreach effort that were developed over the past months. This budget also assumed that ARP will not continue into 2023, which would decrease APTC and increase the state premium RAP costs. Given the high inflation rate, the increases in enrollee contributions have been moderated to keep them more affordable. And premium stabilization is assumed to continue into 2023 with the same two-tier approach as what we're currently using in 2022. And the rates for the Silver plan underlying the Connected Care plans will continue to include a load to make up for the absence of federal CSR reimbursement. Are there any questions on the assumptions? If not, we can continue on the next slide, which show that the programmatic budget cost is estimated at $163.3 million net of FFP, which is $4.9 million unfavorable when compared to the estimate that was presented at the January subcommittee meeting. There is an increase of $7.5 million coming from the CCTF draw, which will be discussed on subsequent slides, along with changes in rate and membership assumptions that were discussed on the last slide. So that's partially offset with favorable CSR reconciliation variance. Are there any questions? If not, I will turn it over to Nupur.
Thank you, Edith. Projected enrollment for FY23 reflects a 2.5% reduction relative to estimates presented in January. The primary driver of these projections is the extension of the public health emergency end date from April 15 to October 15, which is offset in part by the higher ramp up in the second half of the fiscal year due to more comprehensive outreach efforts anticipated for OE 2023. Are there any questions on FY23 enrollment? Okay. And then I'll move on to the 23 admin budget. Relative to the estimates we presented in January, the current FY23 budget reflects a $3.3 million favorable variance. The primary driver of this is the proposed increase in CCTF support to accommodate the negative impact on the administrative budget due to the extension of the public health emergency, which as previously discussed results in membership suppression. The recommended 45 million in CCTF funding for FY23 is consistent with what we were drawing down for 4 consecutive years prior, with the exception of last year. In addition, and compared to January, we have incurred additional vendor costs due to the continued PHE extensions, and this budget recommendation reflects this. For your reference, as Carrie mentioned earlier, a scenario in which the PHE is extended to January 15th is included in the appendix. All things being equal, another extension would result in a break-even budget. Are there any questions on FY23 admin budget? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to Carrie to discuss the FY22 audit.
Thank you, Newber. Hello, everyone. This is just informative for you. We did a competitive procurement earlier this year for our financial audit and related services. And as a result of that procurement, we've executed a contract with KPMG. This contract is for 4 years with an optional 1-year extension. Over the 4-year term, the maximum obligation is about $624,000. This does include a single audit just for FY22. A single audit is a separate audit that's required because we were the recipient of the federal grant funds to help support ARP implementation. So we will have that as well this year. It's been a while since we've had to do that. But the same timeline is going to apply. The draft audit report will be submitted to the comptroller by October 1st, and we'll have the final financial audit report by October 15th. And upon that date, we will share that with this committee. And then the single audit, we anticipate that will be completed later in the year, certainly by the end of 2022. It's not required to be completed, I think, until March 15th of 23, but we're going to get ours done pretty quickly. It should be relatively straightforward. So I'll stop there, and if anybody has any questions on the audit. And hearing none, just quickly, as we had mentioned, we wanted to include here an appendix for you. The purpose of this is just to kind of at a very high level surface what the budgets may look like if the PHE were to be extended into early 2023. So the programmatic budget would be favorable to today's estimates by about 27 million. However, as Newber mentioned, our administrative budget would be negatively impacted because of an additional extension. And under a scenario like this, we are projecting now that the budget would be about a break-even budget. And obviously, we will continue to work closely with Mass Health as we have been doing and our policy friends to make sure that we are aligned on our membership projections as we move forward. So that's the end of the presentation. Is there any last minute questions, concerns, comments?
No question on my part.
Okay, thank you. I don't think that there's a formal vote to send this to the board in July. Is that right, Audrey? I should have looked this up before the meeting, but I don't think that there is.
I think that's correct. I think the vote occurs at the board level. I can double check that, but
yeah, no, I'm fairly certain that is the case. But the next step would be presenting to the board at our July meeting, and the presentation will look somewhat similar, although the comparison point will be the numbers that the board saw last July. So there's no other additional agenda items unless anyone has anything else.
Great, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Lauren.
Well, we can keep this short and sweet if there's no further items. So with that, do we have to do a roll call to adjourn?
I think you do, yes.
All right, so we've got a motion from Dimitri. Do we have a second? Very controversial. Okay. All right. Motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and hope everyone has a nice weekend. We will see everyone at the July board meeting.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you,
Enjoy the
Lauren.
weekend.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.